Daily News, it said Ryan takes the 101st, and for a Marine to take the 101st Division was a heck of an accomplishment. But we need you this time to have Lebanon County. We're ground zero. We were ground zero when Lebanon County delivered Pennsylvania to Donald J. Trump. Oh, yeah. We need to do it next. We are in the battle of a lifetime. Doug, myself, and Stacy, we've been in a situation where we've had to liberate parts of this world. When I saw on January 30th, 2005, 80-year-old people standing along the streets in Baghdad, holding their four fingers up high, painted in purple, saying that they voted and they didn't care if they were going to get beheaded by the insurgents that Marines and soldiers had defeated in the Battle of Fallujah earlier that were trying to kill them. They stood up and voted, and if they can vote, we can vote as well. Don't let this governor give you the grief or the perspective that there's voter suppression, except on their perspective, where the governor's approach is, let's keep the ballot and the counting open until he gets the answer he wants. We're not going to tolerate that here in Lebanon County. I have to tell you, this election is serious. If you value your Second Amendment rights, you need to vote red. We need Republicans in office. If you believe in the sanctity of life, you need to vote red. Republicans. If you believe in your freedom of speech and you want to end this cancel culture as much as I do, you need to vote red and restore freedoms that we have, in some cases, taken for granted in the United States. The American people are going to send a message out loud and clear, but if we have to unify to do it, we have to get out on Election Day and make sure that our voice is heard so we can say in unison, and you know the words as well as I do, that we are one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is extremely impressive resume. I'm going to share a couple notes. Retired Army Reserve Colonel Stacy Garrity, Bradford County native, a decorated veteran on the battlefield of Iraq, and a very successful businesswoman.
Chairman Lynch, I really appreciate those kind words. And I have to do a shout out to friends I met in Harrisburg on Saturday at the Doug Mastriano event, Dorian and Zena Lazar. So thank you guys so much. And Representative Ryan and Russ Diamond, fantastic remarks. Great job. So again, Stacy Garrity, so I am the candidate for state treasurer. So as your chairman just said, I come from Bradford County, not Bradford, PA, so way up in the Northeast, where I always joke that we have more cows than people. Okay. But this area is very important, very familiar to me because I've been to Fort Indian Town Gap hundreds of times, literally. Okay, but Bradford County is a place where everybody knows each other, they like each other. It's a place where we stand for the anthem, we kneel to pray, and when we get back up, we look out for one another. Okay, so why should you elect somebody from Athens, Pennsylvania to be your next state treasurer? So I'll give you just a little bit of background. So I've spent 33 years in manufacturing, working my way up to become the first female vice president at the largest tungsten smelter in the Western world, and that's in Tijuana, Pennsylvania. Now, at this location, we have just under 500 employees. But guess how many we used to have? 1,500. And guess where those jobs went? China. That's right. That's right. So, of course, since I'm in such a rural area, those jobs, a community, that's very near and dear to my heart. Okay, so in my current role, we were able to pass some legislation that I'm just going to mention. So for over 20 years, our Department of Defense incorporated Chinese tungsten into our munitions. Do you think the Bush administration cared? No. Unfortunately not. Do you think the Obama administration cared? No. That's right. Do you think President Donald J. Trump cared? Yes. So we now have legislation, I call it don't buy from the bad guys, but what it is we no longer incorporate tungsten from China, Russia, North Korea, or Iran into our DoD munitions. Yes. And it has created jobs, and it's helped the industrial base in all of the United States. So it's a really good piece of legislation, and we're trying to expand it. Okay, now, I have spent 30 years in the United States Army Reserves. I retired in 2016 because I hit my mandatory retirement date, or I would still be serving, because serving our country was the honor of my lifetime. So I'll thank you. I did deploy to Iraq 3 times. I'm going to age myself now because the first deployment was in 1991 in Desert Storm. But my last one was in 2008-2009. I was acting battalion commander at Camp Bucco, which is in southern Iraq. And our mission was to provide care and custody for over 7,000 detainees, and we had 1,200 soldiers comprised of active duty, guard, and reserve. We were the very first internment facility to have 0 escape attempts and 0 abuse allegations. Okay? Thank you. So I'm an unpaid military police, so very well qualified to guard your money. But what I want to talk about now is a couple of reasons why we really need a change in this current treasurer's office. And I'm going to start out with a quick story. So it starts out, it's about a friend of mine, Dennis, lives in Pittsburgh. I had dinner with him in June. He shows me 2 unemployment checks totaling $5,680. And oh, by the way, they were for the same week in May. Isn't that a lot of money? Okay, but that's not what this is about. He tries to get the checks back, opens up the checks. Who signed them? Joe. So about a week later, he gets a letter from the Bureau of Labor and Industry. Congratulations, Dennis, you've been approved for unemployment. Okay, he's not unemployed. He didn't apply for unemployment. He's a campaign consultant. Okay, so that's just one symptom of how unserious this current treasurer's office is. Now, if you've heard me speak, you'll know this. How many of you know that the governor spent $900 million more last fiscal year than what was appropriated? Boo, is right. $900 million, almost $1 billion. Wouldn't that money be nice to have right now? Yeah. Right, because of course you never know when you're going to have a crisis or where it's going to come from. Now the last thing, the incumbent treasurer donated to the Minnesota Freedom Fund. You all know what the Minnesota Freedom Fund does? They bail out violent criminals, including an alleged murder and rapist. Okay? Well, I was endorsed by the Pennsylvania State Troopers Association. Okay, so this current treasurer does not represent rural Pennsylvania values. Now here's the situation about these row offices. Okay? They all have 1 foot out the door. They use these positions as platforms to run for the next position. So they cannot call out the governor, they cannot be leaders that lead from the front, they stay in the back to wait to run. My only ambition is to serve. So who likes what the governor's done the last 6 to 8 months? And what do you think he'll do his next 2 years? Because he has nothing to lose. Okay? So if we want to send a message to the governor, let's elect a Republican Attorney General, a Republican Auditor General as me as your next state treasurer. I will be an advocate for every Pennsylvanian. I will watch what this governor spends his last 2 years in office. And I will bring my Army values of loyalty, duty, respect, service, honor, integrity, and personal courage to Harrisburg, because money spent in Harrisburg does not belong to bureaucrats or politicians. It belongs to all of you. Okay? Now just very quickly about our President Donald J. Trump. He has worked tirelessly for all of us for the last 4 years. And did you hear what Joe Biden called us when he was in Bucks? Chumps. That's right. Yes, so this president, he's building the wall. He supports law enforcement. Right? He's protecting our veterans. Renegotiating very bad trade deals. Okay? Taking on China. And these unprecedented Middle East peace agreements. And oh, by the way, he supports we have to double down. Don't leave anything on the table. We need to get President Donald J. Trump 4 more years and the entire down ballot. So thank you so much for having me. God bless all of you. God bless Pennsylvania. And God bless the United States.
Thank you very much, Steve. To introduce our keynote speaker, I'd like to call up Greg Moreland. Greg is the chairman of the Lebanon County Young Republicans and chief of staff for State Senator Dave Arnold. Greg?
Thank you, Ed. First and foremost, on behalf of State Senator Dave Arnold, thank you very much. He can't be here tonight, but he wanted to send a big thank you for the invitation, and thank you for all the well wishes that he's received from many of you. A little bit about what Dave has accomplished this year. Dave has had one bill get out of the Senate unanimously, Senate Bill 1075, which was to enhance the penalty for child pornography and also start the state task force to address that problem. Huge accomplishment. I think we're moving in the right direction on that. That was unanimous, bipartisan support, so we're looking forward to that hopefully being signed into law later this year before the session ends. Now, moving on to introducing Senator Mastriano, I asked my intern to do a little bio. He gave me 6 pages. I don't know how much time I have, Ed, but I'll do a little bit of what I can.
There you go. There you go. No dithering.
What can you say about Senator Mastriano? I mean, he is absolutely a force in the Senate. He has come into office not long ago, won a special election for the vacated Rich Alloway's seat, overwhelmingly won his special election there. He is an airborne brother.
Cool. Airborne.
Military veteran. Definitely noticed the wings that you wear on your lapel.
Cool.
He served in numerous positions. I mean, commissioned as an officer in 1986. Served 30 years. 30 years?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Retired as a colonel in the United States Army. Served in positions in NATO. 2005 to 2009, 3 deployments to Afghanistan, 2006, 7, and 8. It's been a busy time for you.
Yep.
He went to the War College, the U.S. Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania from 2009 to 2010. He was then a professor at the Army War College. I mean, the guy's written books. I mean, who writes books anymore?
Dinosaurs.
He has so many degrees. I got to go onto the 3rd page to get all the degrees. But without further ado, State Senator Doug Mastriano.
Oh, thanks, brother. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. Wow. Thank you. It is fantastic to be here at Freedom's Frontier. You have like the A-team of elected officials here. Honest to God, I could not be prouder of a set of Republicans leading the fight against King Wolf, the worst. You guys have done a fantastic job up here. I kind of wish I had some of you down in my area. They got to tell you, thank you for bearing the brunt as well. You know, the governor's come at you, and you guys like remind me of Shakespeare. Do your worst, and you guys, and he's brought it on with stripping away almost $3 million for propaganda, information operations, psychological warfare campaign on masks. And you're standing your ground here. You're walking as free people, not walking in fear. That's right. I don't know. You know, Wolf kind of cracks me up here because I've done 41 episodes now to Where is Wolf? Anyone see him lately? Where is he? Where has he been? In a basement? Hiding with Biden. Yes. He's in a basement. And, you know, when he came out that one time in June, some of you guys called me because he had that big old sunburn on his bald head. I can relate to that. And somebody said to me, is that really a Philadelphia burn or is that from Florida or Hawaii? I'm like, I don't know. You tell me, because he's been missing in action. Dereliction of duty. Frank, help me out here. What do you do with guys who just drop off the side of the mission here?
Time to have a change of command.
There you go. Yes. Somebody help me. He comes out here, all hands on deck, like a typical acrimonious, hypocritical left-winger. All hands on deck. We need everyone there. No elective surgeries here. I'm like, honestly, this is God's truth in March when he gave that ridiculous speech. I'm like, well, at least there'll be no abortions for the next couple months. One exception. Leave it up to the liberals. I thought it was my body, my choice. Therefore, Governor Wolf, Mr. Planned Parenthood, it's an elective surgery. Why can't you be consistent? I'm tired of the hypocrisy of the left. I'm tired of the double standard of the media as well. You know, they'll get into our president's face. Well, you renounce white supremacism. He's done it 38 times. And every time they bring it up like he never has, to paint this appearance that he's associated, affiliated, or inclined towards it. What utter nonsense. Had they ever said to King Tom Wolf, you know, have you renounced the Antifa violence in Philadelphia? Not once. Did they? Oh, my goodness. Dauphin County. There's so much material he gives me, it just drives me crazy. I'm not going to keep you guys all night. You know, when he came out in June and the natives were getting restless and he started opening up the counties there, and of course he held one county in bondage. I'm like, let my people go. I wish. But anyway, Dauphin County, you now should open up. We're now in this yellow phase and you can gather in groups of 25 outside. But if number 26 shows up, you're dead. You're dead. COVID can count. So, you know, I'm like, this is ridiculous. But then the next day he shows up out there with that rally, anti-police rally, cast of thousands. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got no moral authority. You know, and he's walking around there with that Blue Lives Murder behind his head while protected by a plainclothes PSP officer. Why didn't the media get in his face? Well, you renounce that sign. Of course they didn't do that here. And we need to call them out. We can never just throw up our hands and say, well, that's just how it is. We need to push back on them and call them hypocrites. Because in 2 years, when we have a Republican governor, when they get into our face and start saying, well, hey, we disagree with your policy, I'll be, oh, what's your name? Oh, you published this nice, I'm a Philly mag? Oh, we published a study here, all the rioting and looting in Philadelphia. Not one person spread COVID. But you Republicans, if you go to the beach, you better self-quarantine. I'm like, just get the heck out of here. Liberal logic. You know, I guess it's it might be a blessing, Russ, that the governor has all these supreme powers. I don't know, you tell me, man, because, you know, he worked to deal with COVID. You can have a drink, an adult beverage, you know, up until 10 o'clock, but you're dead unless you have food with it. But so you better get food with it. And now it can't just be nachos. Levine says it has to be real food, so a burger or a hot dog. But you know what? After 10 o'clock, you're dead. But if you drink after 11, you're dead. And if you don't have food, you're dead anyway, so you might as well just give it up. Yeah, I know our burden is heavy here. I know it's tough. I know we're getting kind of tired and weary here. We got to stay the course, got to keep. But you know what? The governor made an appearance in Pittsburgh the other day. Remember, a couple days ago? And I'm like, oh, there. I'm glad he's okay. I was looking for his picture up on a milk carton there. You know, have you seen me? I'm like, glad he's okay. Sign of life. But I was a little bit fearful because he came out first. I'm looking for Elvis. No, Elvis isn't there. But I see oh no, he's got Puxatawny Phil underneath his left arm. And the governor comes out, yep, saw my shadow, 6 more weeks of COVID. I'm like, oh my gosh, put that groundhog down. We don't want any more COVID. God help us. I'm like, just get to work. Get rid of Puxatawny Phil. He wants to go to sleep for the wintertime, please. And then the governor comes out 4 weeks ago. Did you watch that speech last month? I don't know how, when I try to watch those speeches, Russ, help me out here. I listen to the speeches. I feel like Charlie Brown listening to the teacher, wah, wah, wah. I'm like, what did he just say? Especially when he gets a question. What's your favorite color? Wah, wah. Just answer the question. Dither. I'm not an attorney. I'm like, then stop talking. I thought you were the governor. Oh, never mind, maybe. And just start acting like the governor. Wolf in Philadelphia. You remember that? With Representative Ullman. What a class act. What that disgusting thing she said about, about miscarriages. What a disgusting person. And that's the best and brightest of that Democrat Party here. They got some real issues. But, Governor Wolf, I'm going to put this mask back on because it's political theater. It's a game to them. It's a rodeo. Why do we listen to them? If you want to wear it. But for them, they don't take it seriously. So the governor comes out last month with his speech. I demand when you're in a public space, self-righteous, listen to the experts. Yeah, we'll start with you, please. And when you're in a public space, you must wear a mask. There he is in a public space, not wearing a mask. I'm like, where's your mask, mister? Lead by example. Somebody help me out here. Oh, my goodness. And it's just gone out of control. There's rare occasions that somebody does pass me in 81 going to work, and I'll be driving down there. I'll look over my shoulder, and some young buckaroo's driving there with a mask on. I kind of double take. I start thinking, like, what are you, a lunatic? But then I can start leaning on a horn. Hey, get that mask off. It's your own air. You're dead anyway if you got it. What are you afraid of? Come on. You're going to be okay. Unless you have COVID, then according to the governor, you're dead. So anyway, unless you have food with that beer, then you're good. I'm like, oh my goodness here. So yeah, I don't recommend that. And then also on 81, pulling it when we're in when we're in session. That beautiful trail on the Susquehanna River there. What's kind of funny here? They charge us downstream for all the crap that's literally poured into the Susquehanna in Harrisburg. Well, wait a second. That's like emblematic of what comes out of Harrisburg, right? You remember when they dumped sewage over a couple months ago? Like, wait, come on now. This is my area downstream. Please don't do that. But is it really about science and facts, or is it fear and control?
That's right. Fear and control.
It's to control you. And they have a lot of people running scared here. They really do. If you're comfortable and want to wear the mask, you're an American. You can. Feel free to do what you want, right? You can live your life any way the heck you want to. But if you don't want to, why do we have, mask Nazis running around, going into the store? Hey, sir, where's your mask? I'm like, who, me? You need a mask. I think you need one more than I do, young man. There the kid has been picking his face all day playing with his phone. Here you go, I got one for you. I'm like, if I put that on, I'm dead. I don't want that on my face. But I guess if I walk around without one, I'm dead anyway. So, lose-lose. Governor Wolf's logic there. But this bondage he's put us in here with the fear and the control and the mask monitors at the doorway, our burden is it's more than we've had to pay before because we've just taken these freedoms for granted in so many ways. We wake up every day and we're free men and women. It's America. It doesn't feel so free anymore, though, does it?
No.
It really doesn't. I think
Rise up and take it back.
we do.
Right.
We've stood aside. Everyone in this room accepted here, but generally the people of Pennsylvania have stood aside. We've had the government that we got because so many of our people stood aside. We saw what happened in Virginia a year and a half ago, right? The good people of Virginia let Northern Virginia, Fairfax County, and what have you, decide on that. And they're even discussing legislation of making it a crime to criticize elected officials. You believe that? I mean, welcome to East Germany or Romania under Ceausescu. I'm like, no. If it's so good in these socialist countries, go to Venezuela, have fun, but don't bring that crap here. And any time you talk about socialism and how it's failed every single time, whether it's communism or national socialism, Nazis were a socialist, they're not a right-wing ideal. The pinheads in universities say that because they're socialists and they don't want to be social with Nazis. So, it's a right. No, it's the more right you go, the less government you have, right? The further left you go, the more, and Hitler was all about control. But if it's so good in those countries, go there. Show me one time when it worked out so well. It hasn't. Well, they haven't applied it properly. I'm like, okay, that's an answer. Sure, we'll try that here. No, I don't think so. But as I walk into the grandeur and majesty of Harrisburg, and I'm still amazed, a year and a half on, I go in there and I see, let us be a seat of the nations, the prophetic words of William Penn, all the scripture verses, the history that's in there, Governor Curtin by the Senate door. And I'm just always like in awe. And I'm like, how'd I get here? How did Doug Mastriano end up here? And my dad was a high school dropout. And he retired as an E6 from the Navy after 20-some years, worked his tail off for his family, the epitome of the American dream. And I'm like, wow. But then as I go up the steps and see the Senate door, I glance over at the lieutenant governor's door, and I see the marijuana leaf, and I'm like, yeah, I guess I can be here, because if Fetterman can be here, I can be here, right? You can do worse. You can do worse. It's possible. It's, believe it or not. Pennsylvania deserves better, don't we? Why do we settle? Why do we settle even in the Republican Party? Why it's okay, it's this guy or gal's turn. They've been in the party doing all this for us all these years. Now it's their turn. Step aside, everyone else. No. And I would say, next go around, whoever you throw your hat behind, make sure it's somebody that's been physically and politically fighting for your life and for your freedoms. This is the most important time in our lifetime, in the past century. It's not hyperbole. I get it. We had a depression in the States, but were your freedoms under assault during the Great Depression? Nope. Were your freedoms under assault during World War I and World War II? Nope. Were your freedoms under assault during the Spanish flu? It was a real pandemic? Nope. Only this time in modern history have Pennsylvanians had their freedom suspended, trampled upon, and spit upon by the governor with such derision and callousness. And so where have the politicians been? And actually, everyone in this room aside, I'm sick of politicians and I'm sick of politics. We want men and women who are going to rise up and fight, that are outsiders, that care about your freedoms, and not about getting rich like Sleepy Joe. I don't know how any congressperson, or senator that makes less than $200,000 a year, and that's in today's terms, how they walk away with a multimillionaire. I mean, there's nothing to see here. And almost to a man or woman, they're all Democrats. Nancy Pelosi with her, little giggle there and her chocolate ice cream, and coming out and preaching and mandating anyone that comes into the House, in Congress there has to wear a mask. There she shows up at her salon in San Francisco. And, of course, the hidden cameras caught her. Yeah, but one of my good friends in Fulton County told me, Doug, you can't go so hard on old Nancy. And I'm like, why? Because it was an honest mistake. She thought it was a saloon, not a salon. I mean, I don't know. You tell me. Maybe. Could be. Hey, what am I doing here? I'm kind of like, wow. I mean, Rebbe and I saw her at the retirement of a congressman, and like a wisp of wind can knock her over. She's a light little thing. I think she has liquid lunches or something. I don't know. So it probably was a saloon that she thought she was going into there. But the governor comes out, and so many people have suffered. We're being ground down by the governor and his oppression. And then what's his answer? You Republicans need to consider recreational use of marijuana. I'm kind of like, no, we'll pass. I think you've been using too much of Fetterman stuff already to have that idea. But it's going to fix all your woes. It's going to bring in all this money here. We can help businesses. I'm like, just open them up. And then I'm kind of like, I remember your buddy there, Ed Rendell. Hey, gambling's going to fix your property taxes. Just bring it on in here, and it's going to. How's your property taxes doing? Who you lied to? This is why I have a disdain for politicians, as everyone in this room does. Politicians are those who are going to get rich off your backs. Elected officials will work for you. They're public servants. And what you see here in Lebanon County are elected officials here. And I'm looking at some great men and women around this room here. And I really stand in awe of you. Frank, Stacy, and I have wore the uniform. And freedom fighters, look different in different generations here. And what's been happening in Lebanon County, and how you guys held the line like in Gladiator? Hold the line. You guys are modern-day patriots here and freedom fighters. So thank you for making a great example for all of Pennsylvania here in the face of tyranny. But we watched the DNC, when they had their convention, and the first guy came out with the Pledge of Allegiance, and they missed under God. I'm kind of like, probably just nervous. I stand up and say things sometimes. I just get a little nervous there. Okay, a couple million people watching you. Well, maybe a couple thousand in their case, but the next day, though, they skipped under God, too. And I'm like, wait a second, that's not an accident. And they really believe that you can have a United States of America without God. Where do they get off thinking that? Tell me which country in the world has been able to succeed without a moral foundation of God in the Western countries and societies. It can't happen. Otherwise, who interprets morality and law? Man. And how's it going with old King Tom Wolfe? Huh? You down with that?
Not good. Bunch of Sodom and Gomorrah over there.
So he comes out with his speech there, essential, non-essential, something they never defined, by the way, life and death. And we're going to accept his interpretation and Levine's interpretation of how to live our lives? I think not. We need God in America. We can't survive without it. It's absolutely essential to America's salvation and endurance as a country that we have God back in our country again. None of our founding fathers imagined a time that we'd have people that believed in office that you could push God out and things would go okay. Benjamin Franklin, he did struggle with his faith. I did read his autobiography, and I'm sure many of you have as well. But if you read it, he does talk about his kind of flirting with deism for a couple years. But he goes, I renounced that. I don't see how that's possible. And it sounded like to me he recommitted his life to the Lord Jesus Christ before he died. With his ups and downs. But in there, he said there was one time he was during the Constitutional Convention. Him and some of his friends were pontificating, and one of his friends said, I don't know how you could be so, happy with religion, because think about all the people that died in the name of religion. And he said something prophetic. Imagine how many more people will die without religion. In the last century, we saw that. You saw that in Romania under Ceausescu. We saw that with Honecker in East Germany. We saw that with Stalin and Lenin. And so more people died in the last century at the hands of godless communists and godless socialists than all the years put together of wars of religion since the creation. That's a fact. And Benjamin Franklin was dead on target with that. And so we need to keep that in mind. So could you imagine America without God in it? No, because America will never exist. As Ronald Reagan said, if we no longer are a nation under God, we'll become a nation gone under, right? That's a fact. A lot of insight and wisdom there. So my PhD is in history. And people from the science and mathematic worlds, of course, and engineers, they're like, Doug, humanities is interesting, but, we have a laboratory on my side, the STEM people. And I'm like, you kidding me? I have a lab too. And they're like, get out of here. My laboratory's a past. I'd rather learn from other people's mistakes than making it in our generation's lives. So we have a lot to refer to in our laboratory here, and it's very interesting to watch it unfold here. What's that?
They're burning books and deleting our history. They're deleting our history.
We have this ridiculous nonsense here called the 1619 Project. That's not history. It's lies and hyperbole with an anti-American agenda. Thank God Donald Trump saw that, and he has a 1776 project coming in to tell the truth about America. We don't have to lie. We lay it out there, but America is the greatest nation in the face of the earth here, and we have nothing to apologize to. We bow to no man. We bow to no king in Saudi Arabia. We bow to no ideology here in Pennsylvania. We walk proudly as men and women. The only time we kneel is when we kneel to pray, but not before any man or any altar. We stand together in this great nation here, and we have to. Otherwise, if we don't hang together, what did Franklin say? We'll hang separately, right? That's why it means so much to me what happened in Lebanon County. You guys stood together, and the pressure came. The governor wanted to deprive you of almost $13 million, dangle it out there as punishment here. General Assembly, we were too slow to act on that here. I don't know why we're not swift of foot. We can be when we want to be. But, you guys held the line. And in the end, the governor, did capitulate with a big concession of almost $2.8 million for a propaganda campaign. But in the end, you held the line. He didn't win. And so keep holding the line here. It's not missed upon the rest of Pennsylvania. You serve as an example and as a beacon light to the rest of us here. But, I watched the governor in his press conferences here. Where's the media? I hear his dithering answers, dither, Charlie Brown, wah. Why don't they hold him accountable? The only reason why Levine is able to stay in power as a Secretary of Health, what a failed, miserable person. Would a Republican Secretary of Health get away with the shenanigans Levine has committed? Oh, no. Yeah, the media would be breathlessly reporting. They'd be having the family members on who lost people because of failed policies of Republican Secretary of Health. They'd care about the lockdowns, those with dementia who are giving up hope. They'd be talking to nurses. We had a rally on the steps here in honor of those loved ones that have died, and as well as those who were cut off and the family members that want to have access. And 2 or 3 members of the media showed up. If that was a Republican governor's failed policy, they would have been just rows and rows of media there, and they'd be obsessing until Levine resigned. And what a terrible person. 1819 March, one of only 5 states that come up with that ridiculous policy of sending COVID sick people back into the most vulnerable. Taking the sick, not quarantining them, but dumping them in the most vulnerable population. We knew that at the time. That's the only thing that the esteemed and much worshipped Dr. Fauci got right. It was 75 and older and pre-existing health conditions would be vulnerable. And Levine, in a sheer sign of medical malpractice and malfeasance, dropped the sick into the vulnerable. And it's resulted in over 66% of all deaths in Pennsylvania, over 6,000 deaths. And where's the media? They don't care because they stand together with the failed policies of this Democrat governor here. They need to get off the box because when we do have a Republican governor 2 years, we're not going to take them seriously when suddenly they become acrimonious, with intellectual curiosity. Do your jobs. A republic can't survive with a lot of things. One thing that's essential is a free press that's not blinded by partisan rage. And these people here just kill me. Like, for instance, when I told you about I was mocking the governor because he encouraged the riots and looting in Philadelphia. He stood aside, as he is now. He praised the perpetrator and attacked the police. I'm like, what is wrong with this person here? This party is against law and order in America. They do not stand for our values here. They're for chaos and disruption. They're for divide and conquer, as Caesar would have it, divide imperiae. But we're Americans. We stand together. For all of us that served in a uniform, skin color doesn't mean a whit to us. We could care less what your skin color is. It's about getting the job done. We're Americans serving underneath the same flag, with the same creed, the same pledge. And because of that, we have to fight together. Otherwise, we'll lose everything here. And so there is hope. There's a generation of people. When my son joined the Army on 9/11 last year, the room was packed with about 40 or 50 other young people his age, on that significant day. They haven't forgotten, although the governor would like us to forget. And so much is at stake here. And so as we go down this whole thing, the governor is okay with rioting and looting, in Philadelphia, but you can't pray together. Why aren't churches back open again? Could you imagine the Christians during the days of Nero? Oh, we better not gather to worship because we're going to, be dinner for lions tonight. They met, they took risks. The Bible says, forsake not the gathering together. What are you afraid of? And the governor doesn't want you to sing. He's almost as bad as the Newsom out in California. What a lunatic. But you wait for the governor to come out with his Thanksgiving restrictions as Newsom has. You have to eat outside, 6 feet apart, Only use the bathroom, has to be cleaned after every use. I'm like, oh, get the heck out of here. Yeah. But it's okay to loot together and sweat on top of each other and break into Walmarts and steal, but you better not pray together. Is there a Democrat agenda trying to push God out? Yes, there is. No secret there. And so, do we value our freedoms in the end? And, it's funny, the media just cracks me up because I've learned, we've had 2 reopen rallies and then 3 freedom rallies. And many of our friends have been to every single one of those rallies. I love you guys. And thank you. Wow. All those rallies were grassroots. Walk as free people. That's right.
What's our next governor?
I love you, man.
Trump said it. What was it? Yesterday, the day before yesterday. We need to get a new governor.
Oh, we need a new governor. I love you guys. Oh, I've lost my train of thought. Okay, so anyway, I've seen something happening in Pennsylvania. Myself, I never planned on running for office. And Stacy's on target there. I'm 30 years in as a colonel. There's no general officers in my career field, strategic intelligence. And so if you make it a colonel, that's it. And the Army's like, okay, you're too old, move on. And I was having a hard time retiring. I'm sure Stacy had the same misgivings. I was like, no, I love what I'm doing here. It's all I ever wanted to do. But as I was contemplating and reflecting on my 30 years of service in uniform, I was having a hard time, and Rebby could tell you, I was a little emotional about it. You want to talk? Isn't Rebby awesome? I'm blessed. Army wife. You want to tell them the story about our introduction to the leadership? So a year and a half ago, I got to the election and we're meeting leadership and we're being grilled, 1,000 questions. I didn't know they didn't know what to expect from an Army colonel. They think it's something from HBO. No, it's not really like that, right, Stacy? Greg, what do you think? No. Who's your campaign manager? And I'm like, oh, Rebby led my campaign. And they looked over at her and said, well, what are your qualifications? Very disapproving, judgmental. And what was your answer?
I'm an Army wife.
I'm an Army wife. They had no idea what that meant. Anyone who served in the military knows that the military spouses, they're tough as nails. All these moves, all the drama dealing with it. As newlyweds were assigned to Cold War West Germany, and every year they evacuate us. They have a drill where they evacuate the family members out in case the Soviets attack. It's called a non-combatant evacuation exercise. And they all line up, file their papers, and start headed towards the buses in case the Soviets come. And we were newlyweds, and we had 3 cats that we adopted, strays from Mercer County. And Rebby was like, well, what are you going to do with my cats? And the MP, gotta love the MPs. This young soldier, E4, Gray, you can imagine. All we'll just come through the housing area and shoot them. We're about a year into our marriage, right? Anyway. And so Rebby's like, I'm coming up with my own plan. I'm going out on my own through Switzerland with my cats. It's crazy. But you go through all that there. And so, military spouses, I think that's the hardest job in the Army, actually, right? It's tough. They sacrifice so much. But the media only suddenly becomes concerned about our health and welfare when it's conservatives, right? You can loot and riot. Philly Magazine will publish scientific findings. Nobody got sick. No super spreaders. But if you go to the beach, you better self-quarantine. God have mercy on your soul. You're going to be a spreader and bring catastrophe. And then suddenly, they make up these stupid words that are meaningless and empty, but they oppress us with their stinking lies. And I speak life over Pennsylvania and not death as they do with their oppressive, nasty infringements upon our freedoms. And all these rallies that we went to, one rally we had over 7,000 people. But I found out with the media, if you have thousands, they'll say hundreds. If you have hundreds, they'll say dozens. And that's a fact. And in fact, one of the rallies we had 5,000 attend. CBS News from Harrisburg drove out. They were there 2 hours before the rally. I'm like, wait a second. And they showed about a dozen people, setting up, and that they left in 10 minutes. And then the report was, yeah, we only saw a couple dozen people. I'm like, it didn't even start yet. What a bunch of lying dog-faced pony soldiers. We'll have the record playing in the back for Joe Biden. I mean, what's wrong with that guy, old Sleepy Joe? What are they pumping up? There must be some secret drug that they inject him with right before, the debates. What a dithering. Really? How could any honest person, regardless of politics, say, yeah, he'd make a great president? This guy will have his fingers on the launch codes for the nuclear weapons that could destroy the world 50 times over. You really want him to have that football in his hand?
Hell no.
You know, the nuclear football? No.
Johnny Joe? Hell no.
Yeah. But, and also the concern, of course, we went to Johnstown and the other rallies. They actually report the numbers correctly. There were thousands of people who showed up, tens of thousands, but very few were wearing masks. I'm like, oh, just shut up. They only report positive news and facts when it advances their agenda, right? So, what's the way ahead for us? The way ahead is we have to choose to walk into people. And yes, you might have to deal with that 17-year-old kid playing with his face in his phone and trying to hand you a contaminated mask with unwashed hands. But just take your business elsewhere. There's a lot of small businesses that sure you need your help. You can't gather at church, but it's okay to pack out Walmart and the box stores. Really? Come on. Where's the science? Believe in the science and the experts. You notice even the World Health Organization says Pennsylvania's out of step. They're like, you need to open up. People are suffering. Suicides are up. Substance abuse, domestic abuse, all the pressure that you're putting on people, the uncertainty. And Tom Wolf thinks he's doing a good job. And thinks that Levine's doing a great job. Could a Republican Secretary of Health get away with finding out that it was a bad policy to send sick people down to the homes? And my mom's in one of those, and like a snake in the grass, stuck mommy out. And had mommy over here at the lodge in the suite. You can see mom anytime Levine wants to. But what about you? Really? Why didn't Levine come out like an honest, decent person and say, you know what? We have a problem. Get your loved ones out if you can. I don't know how long. It's going to be costly, a lot of sacrifice, but you get them out of home because it was bad. It's a mistake. But Levine did. And the governor doubles down. And the media is not on our side. We stand alone. And I'm calling out modern-day journalists to actually report facts and not party politics. But do we value our freedoms? Do we value them?
Yes.
So it's time for us to start walking like free people, right?
That's right.
Right. It's your choice. If you want to take the precautions and social distance and all that is your God-given right. And if you don't want to, that's your right as well. If you're afraid, stay home. We had one of the senators, very few of the Democrats actually showed up to work. And that's okay that we amended the rules so they could zoom in. But it's funny looking. I wish I honor the thing saying no pictures from, but I go to the gallery and it's like almost every Republican's there and just a handful of Democrats. And one of them, drove in from the Philly area and she pulled a desk out of the back room and is over in the corner. Oh, she felt threatened by the Republicans not wearing masks. I'm like, why'd you just stay home then? Why this drama? Really? Like, what the heck here? We need modern-day leaders to rise up who are bold and courageous. In the face of lies, that Democrats will lie, cheat, and steal. You look what they've done to Donald Trump. He's delivered results like no one could imagine here. What he said he's done, and what he's done he said he's going to do. Every time I look, there's another promise delivered here. He's no politician. He's a public servant. But the Democrats lied about China about him, corruption and collusion with Russia, with Ukraine, and guess who's guilty?
Hunter Biden.
Junior, and the big guy, he gets 10%.
It's 10%.
I'm like, is this Iraq or Afghanistan where the warlord is paid off for access? That's what it feels like. And no, I stand against it. That's not America. So remember who we are. In 1776, down the road in Philadelphia, the light of liberty was lit. Remember that. And that changed everything. Any nation that's free today, it's thanks to Philadelphia in 1776. But the job wasn't done. There was a Democrat Party, largely in the South, but also North. They embraced the institution of slavery. The Democrat Party. Republican Party was formed as an opposition to slavery, to set all men free. And a bloody civil war is fought right here in our state and just down the road in my district. And I wasn't there, but Frank Ryan's got some stories to tell about that. He was there. I think he even saw Bobby Lee pass by.
Even he wasn't in the bunker.
He's leading the next charge.
But in 1863 in Gettysburg, a new birth of freedom. Think about the sacrifice. Bloodiest battle in North America. So much blood and treasure lost here. Set all men free. But not left to be, you guys ever watch that movie, Free State of Jones? So what happened when the landlords, old slave-holding Democrats came back in and took possession of their plantations again? They had free men to deal with, so what did they form? The KKK. Democrat Party founded under Nathan Bedford Forrest. And who recently gave the eulogy as Senator Byrd's ceremony. Yeah. Joseph. Yeah. So could you imagine a Republican speaking at a KKK Grand Master's funeral? Could you imagine? The media, will you renounce David Duke? I'm like, who is that loser? Nobody knows who he is down south. He's some kind of lunatic. But you have Senator Byrd from West Virginia, Grand Master of the KKK, and it's okay for Biden. Biden actually said he was his mentor and role model. Yeah. So why would you vote for someone like that?
So did Hillary.
That's right. And then segregation, who was behind that? Jim Crow laws, who was behind that? And who stands against life? That same party that stood with slavery. These are facts. As John Adams says, I have Adams County. Facts are stubborn things. And guess what? We got to deal with it. You can't rewrite the history. We don't accept that. That's Orwell. We're going to live as Americans. We're going to remember our past. We're going to learn from it, understand how we got here, and become even better in our future here. But I remember the sacrifices of those who've gone before us here in the First World War, Second World War, Korea, Vietnam, War on Terror, Desert Storm, Stacy and I's first war. Frank, that was your third or fourth war, I think, right? Fifth, okay. Sorry, I can't keep up with you, brother. And then, of course, 2001, let's roll. Flight 93, Todd Beamer, an adoptive son from New Jersey, Pennsylvania. Let's roll is on most of our fire trucks, right? Remember how these great Americans rose up in dark times. And then let's not forget 2016. I thought that would be the single most important election in a lifetime. It was at the moment. But they all told us that old Hillary was all but won that victory. Right? You remember how depressing that day was? We went in and dutifully voted, but Hillary's going to win. But I watched Pennsylvania, and 1% of the vote comes in for Hillary. Yep, Hillary's got this state, and I'm watching. It's like 98% of the votes in for Pennsylvania. They won't call it. So I'm like, come on, I got to get to work in a couple hours. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. But at 2:30, finally, with great tears and consternation and screaming and hollering, who won in 2016? Donald J. Trump. And this is our time once again. 2020 is even more important. He's delivered us. He's given us 3 fantastic Supreme Court justices. How about Amy, huh? Oh, yeah. Yeah. But I would say, as Reagan said, you ain't seen nothing yet. So let's finish a job there, get him reelected, put Stacey Garrity in, reelect your beautiful Republicans here from all the seats, and let's take back our state. This is really our hour, our day, our time. We've been called for such a time as this. This is our Esther moment. So now it's our turn to keep the republic. God bless you guys. Thank you, Ed. Wow, thank you. You guys are fantastic.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready for election day. Thank you very much, Senator. Thank you very much. Thanks for fighting for people of Lebanon County, being an advocate for us. I have a couple brief remarks.